What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikiPikaPapa, and you all know I get an extra pep in my step whenever it's time to talk about our monthly grading report video. Like, this is hobby level, macro level, like big time information that I absolutely love. It revs my engine, it gets me going. I use it as a rudder in the water when I'm steering my collecting and investing ship because there's so much cool information. We're going to talk about the most graded sets, we're going to talk about the most graded Pokemon, we're going to talk about the most graded individual cards, we're going to see all kinds of patterns and trends, and this is just super, super cool information. So we're going to be looking at PSA, CGC, Beckett, SGC, and we're going to be looking at the actual number of cards that were graded, right? The thing that I love about this is there's no ambiguity to it. There's not a whole lot of interpretation, like black and white, raw numbers. This is what actually happened, and I love it. I also don't know of anybody else in the Pokemon space who talks about this the way we do, and I think this is just mission critical stuff. So with that out of the way, listen, if this stuff gets you as excited as it gets me, it probably doesn't, but it should. But if this gets you as excited as it gets me, hey, listen, hit that subscribe button. We're building an amazing community. We would love it to have you as a part of it. If you like what you see, give us a thumbs up. Questions or comments, drop them down below. I love to interact with you guys. With all that being said, let's get into the data, right? So right off the bat, we always look at these two different charts, okay? So on the left is PSA and all the other companies. Then on the right, because PSA is just so far and away everybody else, we break the other companies out so we can actually get a good comparison of how they stack up against one another. But hey, listen, how crazy is it that I had to title this Back to Reality when PSA grades 1 million cards? Think about that, 1 million cards, what a crazy number. But the reality is the last 2 months, they've graded almost 1.25 million each month. So dropping down to 1 million, hey, that's an 18% decrease month over month. You'll see that they do this over the time. You can follow the red line on the chart, like they kind of stair step their way up and down. It'll be interesting to see if they can have a bounce back month. But anyways, hey, big drop month over month. I'm not sweating it. It's just part of the trend that we see with PSA. What was interesting though to me was SGC. So SGC is really throwing the kitchen sink at anything in the sports card space and also in the TCG space. Like, they're really trying to become that number 2 to PSA. Now, I want to say this loud and proud and clear. I know I'm a big fan of PSA, but I really think there should be a number 2 grading company. Like, all markets do better when there's a 1 and a 1A, and right now it's PSA and just everybody else kind of jumbled here at the bottom. So I appreciate SGC's effort, but they are doing this $15 TCG grading card special, right? It's 5 to 10 day turnaround time, no limit on the value of the card, $15 per slab. I get what they're trying to do, but nobody wins in a race to the bottom, right? I hate it. If all these grading card companies start competing to get to the very bottom, the lowest price, the fastest turnaround time, I don't think we as collectors win, because something has to give when you do that. Like, I always have said this: good, fast, cheap. I can give you 2 of the 3. You want it good and you want it fast? I can't give it to you cheap. You want it cheap and you want it good? Guess what? It ain't going to be fast. And in SGC's case right here, they're trying to do it cheap. They're trying to do it fast. My gut tells me it's not going to be very good. So I'm not a big fan of their promotion, but hey, listen, if you're into it, it's out there, it's super cheap, and it's super fast. Now, Beckett, I am a huge Beckett fan, right? Like, I am so in love with Beckett. Back when I first started collecting cards, Beckett 9.5s had a huge premium over PSA 10s. Now, this was 20 years ago, but back when I first started, Beckett was the grading company. They were the gold standard. Obviously, things have fundamentally shifted since then. But I also love Beckett because when I was a kid, like the first 10 days of every month, I would sprint to the frickin' mailbox. We didn't have the internet. The only way I knew if my cards went up or down in value was because of the Beckett magazine that would come every month. So I'm always cheering for Beckett. I hope they can figure it out. I hope they can bounce up. But they do this, right? They get me excited, then they break my heart. So they're up 17%. I hope they keep that going. I hope they keep marching the drumbeat of grading, but we shall see. CGC, on the other hand, I can't figure out CGC, right? They'll grade 100,000 cards one month, 50,000 cards the next month. They're always all over the place. Hey, they're up 19% this month, but guess what? That was coming off of a 1-year low last month. So for me, it's just not a company that I have a lot of faith in right now. Again, I'm hoping SGC, Beckett, or CGC figures it out. None of them have seemed to be able to get the magic potion together to go after PSA, but I hope one of them does. So with that being said, now we're going to look at the most graded sets. Now I want to call this out. These are TCG sets as a whole. This includes Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh! This includes anything in the TCG space, but there's only Pokemon on here because there's Pokemon and then there is everything else. Nothing else comes close to the volume in regards to the grading space as Pokemon. So what's interesting to me, these top 3 sets, so the 1999 Pokemon game, Crown Zenith, Japanese V-Star Universe, these are the same 3 top sets for 3 months in a row. I've never seen that before, so really interesting. The other thing that popped off the page to me, look at the amount of graded cards in Japanese V-Star Universe. 126,000 cards have been graded at PSA from the Japanese V-Star Universe collection. Then you get down to Crown and Zenith at 68,000. Then the 1999 Pokemon game, 678,000. But again, it's from 1999, right? And I do want to call out, that includes first edition, shadowless, and base set. So, you know, Japanese V-Star Universe just going crazy from a grading perspective. It was interesting. This is the first month where we've seen Japanese sets fall off. So Japanese sets have really dominated this list for the last 3 to 4 months this month. We saw 3 fall off and 1 come on. I don't know what that means for the Japanese market as a whole. I know some booster box prices in the Japanese area have been cooling off a bit. This might be an indication that the singles are cooling off a bit. I want to see a little more data before I make that, but this is the type of stuff that we start to notice early on, and it could give us some indication as to what's going on. Love seeing Evolving Skies on here, right? Love seeing the big Sword and Shield set popping up here. And then I also love to see Brilliant Stars and Celebration jumping back on the list. So they have been on, they have been off over the last 6 months, but I'm excited to see them back on. Celebrations, I think, as it becomes rarer and rarer in the wild, I think it's going to increase in value. Brilliant Stars just went through a little reprint or restock, whatever you want to call it. And I think the singles prices really haven't been changed, but it's awesome to see them, both those sets, back up here. So anyways, super interesting to look at the most graded sets. I think this is a big indicator of what is going on in the hobby as a whole. Next, we look at the most graded cards, and I want to explain what all of these numbers mean. So we're going to stop at the very top. So obviously you have the year, 2022. Then you have the Pokemon Japanese Scarlet and Violet promo, Pikachu pre-order number 1. The next one is the all-time graded. So there's been 20,500 of these cards graded. In May, there was 3,100. Again, it's down 36% month over month. PSA is down, 18% month over month. Not a big surprise there. Then we get into the gem rates. And this is something I talk about a lot on this channel, and it really flies under the radar, but I think this is like mission critical important stuff. When you look at the May gem rate, it was 89%. That means of the 3,100 of these cards that were sent to PSA, 89% of them got a PSA 10 gem mint, which I think is absolutely ludicrous. But again, we know the quality of Japanese cards is through the roof. Then you look at the April gem rate, it was 88%. Then you look at the all-time gem rate of 89%. Now, I'm going to talk about current month gem rate versus all-time gem rate here in just a minute. But I want to talk about a couple of these other things first. Scarlet and Violet, not even on here, right? Very interesting that we don't have a Scarlet and Violet card on here yet. Now, when Crown Zenith came out, we saw a card on here. We saw those gold cards on here super early. We haven't seen one yet, so I wanted to call that out. But again, it's been really interesting. Scarlet and Violet, we don't know. What kind of set's it going to end up to be? I know it was really hyped. It doesn't seem to be, huge. Booster box prices are going down. Single prices are dropping at a faster rate than we're typical seeing. But anyways, Crown Zenith is on here. Crown Zenith is doing really, really good. Got a couple singles from there. Of course, you got your Japanese singles. There's some really, really cool cardboard on here. But the thing I wanted to call out, and I talk about this all the time, is this. Look at the May gem rate versus the all-time gem rate. Now, I have this belief, and this belief has been backed up by looking at this chart for months and months and months and months and months. The all-time gem rate is almost always higher than the current month gem rate. Now, by that I mean, I have this feeling that the sooner you get your cards to PSA, if it's a borderline, PSA 9, PSA 10, if the PSA 10 population is lower, you have a better odds of getting a PSA 10. I don't know why it is, but when you look at this, 8 of the 10 cards on this list, their May gem rate is lower than the all-time gem rate. The other 2 of the 10, it's flat. Not in a single instance on this do you see a May gem rate higher than the all-time gem rate. I think we've been doing this video for 6 months now on this channel. Only 2 individual cards in the last 6 months have we ever seen a current month gem rate higher than the all-time gem rate. I share this with you because if you're sitting on cards, if you're thinking about sending them to PSA, don't wait. If you know you're eventually going to do it and you have the means to do so, get them there now. Get them there before the PSA 10 population gets too big. I promise you, for whatever reason, the data seems to suggest the earlier you get them there, if it's a 9-10 border, you have a better odds of getting it in a 10. So that's the PikiPikaPapa tip of the week right there. Now that we've looked at single cards, we're going to look at the most graded subjects. Again, this is all of TCG, not just Pokemon, but this is a list that is dominated by Pokemon. So you got Charizard and Pikachu. They are always 1, always 2. The Mew I like to call out, that is Mew and Mewtwo slammed into one, so they don't separate it out for whatever reason, but that's not a big deal. Then you get the Umbreon, the Blastoise, the Rayquaza, Arceus, Venusaur, Giratina, Zapdos, Moltres, and Marnie. What an impressive list of the who's who in the Pokemon world. Like, none of this really surprises me, but I always get excited when I see cards start to move. So Arceus moved from 10 to 7. Marnie has been back-to-back on here. Now, we will sometimes see trainers who make this list, but rarely do we see them stick on for 2 months in a row. So that tells me the Marnie market is getting super hot. I don't know if people are looking at the Sword and Shield era base set. I don't know if people are looking at Marnie's Pride. I don't know what it is, but a lot of people are sending Marnies through to get graded. The other thing I want to call out is the Rayquaza. We've talked about that so much on this channel as of late. Listen, Rayquaza didn't even make this list until January. Ever since he did, he has been a staple. He has been slowly climbing the ranks. He is doing absolutely awesome when it comes to the grading space. So we talk about momentum in the hobby. That dude certainly has it, and I am always excited to look at this and see the movers and shakers in the grading space. This is another one that I love talking about. I have shared this before. I have this deep-seated conviction that in time, I don't know when that time will be, a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 100 years, I truly think that Pokemon is going to overtake sports balls as the biggest card collecting hobby. Now, when I say sports balls, I want to be clear. I'm only talking about baseball, basketball, football, the big three, right? So what I've been tracking is I've been tracking the total number of TCG cards graded versus the total number of baseball, basketball, and football cards combined. Now you'll see I started this back in December, okay? And TCG was 81.5% of the sports ball segment, right? Then in January it dipped to 70. In February it was neck and neck, right? Almost 94%. Now we're starting to settle in the mid 80s. I think this is really, really good. What I did also on this slide was I went back to my slide from 2022, same month, 2022. Guess what? TCG was only 57% of ball sports back then. We have climbed in the course of a year from 57% to 85%. Think about how big of a market swing that is. It is just absolutely incredible to think about. Yes, guess what? From an overall grading perspective, TCG was down this month, but everybody was down. That is fine. This does not worry me at all. TCG is now 39% of all of the cards that are graded at PSA. I think this is, when I talk about the reason I believe in the faith of this hobby, when I talk about the reason that I think that overall, in the grand scheme of things, nobody has to worry. Yes, we're going to see market fluctuations over the next period of time, but TCG is coming on like a freaking freight train. The data suggests it, okay? So I feel really good about where we're at. I'm always excited to track this, and I cannot wait until this finally eclipses 100%. I don't know, we're going to do a special celebration here on the PikiPikaPapa channel. Now, these are the total cards graded, TCG cards graded by month at PSA in particular. It was so funny. Last month, I was loud, I was proud, I banged my chest. I said, hey, listen, I always call this baseline number, right? The baseline number before was, I don't know, I think I had it at 300,000. I was like, we've been at 400,000 long enough. I'm drawing a new baseline at 400,000, and look what happened. We finished at 396. Go figure. But listen, May, year over year, we're up 140% increase in TCG. That is absolutely crazy. That's way up over sports cards year over year. I talked about this earlier. I talked about Scarlet and Violet. I was hoping to see more of a Scarlet and Violet impact. Next month, we should start to see some singles on the list. I hope. If not, man, that means we're in a whole world of trouble from a long-term value perspective for Scarlet and Violet singles. But again, I just don't think the set hit the way everybody thought it would. We will see, but that's what I love about this video. That's why we look at it every single month. We shall see what impact Scarlet and Violet has coming up next month. Now, this is a really cool one to look at too. This is the exact gem rate by era. So we looked at gem rates by individual cards. This is gem rate by era. Now the cool thing is this is broken out specifically for TCG at PSA. Now Beckett has everything melded into one. SGC has everything melded into one. Obviously CGC is just trading card games, but it's really interesting to see this. Now what we saw was last month, the PSA gem rate at TCG was all the way up in the 70s. It has dropped 5% month over month, but we also saw a bunch of Japanese sets drop off. Now we know Japanese have a really high quality. Japanese get a lot of PSA 10 gem mints. So maybe we saw the overall holistic PSA 10 gem rate come down because we got fewer Japanese cards that came through. I don't know. What I think would be really cool is if we were able to get SGC and Beckett broken out in the TCG space the same way we have PSA right here, because I always hear these arguments in different spaces and on Facebook and all these things where they say, well, PSA is an easy 10. Well, SGC is an easy 10. Well, CGC is an easy. The only way we know is by looking at data like this. So I would love to have this broken out. But overall, it's really, really cool to see the different eras and the different gem rate by era. Now, I will say, this is all TCG. Remember that. You might be looking at the 1980s and say, well, how do we have a 15% gem rate in the TCG space at PSA when Pokemon wasn't around back then? That's because there's other TCG cards from the 80s, right? So remember, this isn't just Pokemon. This is all the other awesome brands and awesome collectibles in the TCG space. But I thought this gem rate data is always cool to look at every single month. Now, the next one right here, listen. If we consider this a bad month and PSA did 1 million cards, I will take bad months all day long. I think it is super cool. You look at this overall green bar graph. This is just all the cards graded at PSA month over month for the last 24 months, and you'll see this is on an upward to the right trajectory. I'm telling you right now, year-over-year numbers are good. Grading volume is good. Next month, it'll be interesting to see if the market reacts back up, but even if it's down again next month, I am still not concerned. The grading market is strong. The hobby is strong. This is the kind of information that we need. This is the kind of information which helps me feel good when I am investing my family's money into it. So I hope you love this video as much as I do. I hope you find as much value in it as I do. If you've made it all the way to the end and you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, what are you doing? Hit the subscribe button. If you liked what you saw, give us a thumbs up. Questions or comments, drop them down below. I love responding to them. I hope you guys have an awesome week, and I will see you on Friday, all right? See you, everybody.